Did you get your screen to come up?
Or should I?
Yeah. What are you basing?
I mean, good thing is, we know that the selection schedule.
They're all asking the same question.
We know, I'm sure. Yeah, I get your question.
Their stuff comes up later.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of figuring, like, they would have a few minutes by the time we got to
I've got
that.
the camera.
All right. Thank you so much. All right, also our.
Yeah, no. Yeah.
I need one. All right, thank you all for coming to May's edition of the Construction Advisory Committee. We'll start with the call to order. Welcome. I know we have some new faces in the room, so we would like to go around once and do a brief introduction yet again. I know there's been a little bit of turnover. We get some new faces, and then we also have some guests. So go through the room. My name is Ryan Richards, RD Architects.
Scott Lane with Return Engineering. Tom Mayer with Harvard Jolly, yes.
Bob Taylor, ADG Architecture.
Stephen Howard, Contractor.
Russ Ringland, I run a nonprofit.
Jackie Brown, interior design.
Frank Stout, I work with Envirostruct.
Rusty the tree guy.
Yeah, I know, and I was like, that was interesting to hear how
The name of the nonprofit is Future Forestry Corporation.
Architects, one of
Three
those.
guys, LLC.
Kenny Hume, Johnson Engineering.
Scott Ringbecker, Director of Lee County Schools Construction.
Clarissa Parodi, AVG Architecture.
Peter Spinella, Target Builders.
Christopher Stever, Maintenance Coordinator.
Tony McNair, Assistant Director of Maintenance Services.
Sean Brady, Maintenance Coordinator.
Barbara Sedino, Director for Maintenance Services. Thank you for having us this evening.
Thank you for that. With that, I was unable to attend Abel's minutes, so I have no comments on the meeting minutes, but should anyone
It was a
else?
really good meeting.
You did a great job.
Yeah.
Nothing on the agenda?
Just so
Right,
you
that's what I
know,
heard.
you were not.
You were.
It was.
Wow. I just ran over.
Yeah, so I make a motion that
Welcome back.
I make a motion we accept the meeting minutes
Was presented,
as presented.
Who motioned for that?
Dana Hume made a motion.
Okay,
and Mr. Taylor seconded.
okay, thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you for that. Our next item on the agenda is a reminder of the member whose terms are about to expire. And I did have an email, and I apologize, I do not have it on me at the moment. Ms. Morgan, I understand, is running a few minutes late, so hopefully we can adjust her towards the rear end of the agenda. So with that, we have public comment, and I noticed Tom addressed himself as a guest. So if you have something to chime in on,
This public has no comment.
this public has no.
Now, Ron, you mentioned when you say in the one reminder of members' terms expiring,
Yes.
you need to reapply. So if you're an
Correct.
expiring member, you have to reapply.
Can we, how do we find out where we are in the cycle?
I have that email here,
Okay,
I'm looking for
thank
it
you.
right now.
And Julia.
And I brought a list if anybody wants to review it after the meeting.
Can I borrow that just for a minute, just to, I can rattle it off in the minutes? Do you have the list on you?
Yes, I do.
Just so people know off the top of their head. I'm looking, I know you sent it to me, I'm looking for the email. Just found it. Perfect timing. Okay. So in pink, starting off the top of the list, we have myself, Mr. Taylor, Mr. Schwartz, Mr. Ringland, Mrs. Brown, Mr. English, and Mr. Hume will all be expiring this year and will need to apply in July. August.
I think it's July. And you can get with Julia too, she'll help you with how you do that.
So really, the only safe people in the room, and there's a little typo on the list, is Mr. Lane, Mr. Spinella, and Mr. Castellanos. Your list is shorter than my list.
Is it?
Mr. Al-Bahu, Mr. Tobler, Mr. Ord, Mr. Stout are also safe, according to my email.
Okay,
So, with that said, just letting everybody know that
Okay.
we need to reapply.
I'll get with you after the meeting to look at your email too.
There's not enough names on here.
Did you read off Clarissa's name? She just came on the committee.
And yet she doesn't appear on either of my lists.
Because she's your vice.
Oh, wait, no, yeah, Miss Parody is here, I apologize.
And which list is she on?
She's on my list, not Julia's list.
But like, is she renew or not?
No, she's
No,
clear, she has, this is 2 years,
Okay.
she'll have to renew next year.
Right, and I think Mary Reeder might have mentioned something to me that
Yeah.
the terms sometimes get staggered. So, well, I'll check with her on that to get a better explanation.
I also wanna point out that there's a typo on your list.
Okay,
Scott is in the 2 category, but he's listed as a 1, he's the right color, he's the wrong number.
oh, okay, thank you.
Right, so in short, all of you people that are expiring, get with Julia, she'll help you work through. July, I believe, is the cutoff, reapply, we wanna see you back.
Right, and they don't want, and Mary Reeder does not want anybody to apply until July 1st.
Okay.
So it'd be during the month of July to reapply.
All right, now that we've slid board member comment down the agenda just a little bit, Mrs. Morgan is waving her hand.
Oh, but I don't need to do board member comment right now, but I do wanna make a comment about the advisory committee. I've been the liaison for 2 years, and so I am obligated to go off and go on to another committee, so starting in the fall, you will have a different board liaison, I don't know who that will be.
We'll miss you.
I'll miss you guys,
Should we try to recruit
you
one?
are exciting, what?
Should we try to recruit one?
It's, hold up your hand and volunteer. Anyway.
Fair enough, we did kind of skip over your subject, waiting for you to arrive. Do you have something specifically under the board member comment?
Sure, so I will tell you all that since the beginning of April, we've been working on the code of conduct. There's a lot of controversy in the community about particularly how we represent parental rights, equity and diversity. So we've met 3 times to talk about it, and it's still under revision. The governor signed the bill to cancel the 72
Did you sign it?
election that Lee County residents made to have an appointed instead of an elected superintendent. So on the ballot in November, you will have to indicate that you wish to have an appointed superintendent instead of an elected superintendent. We've got a tech college update, and to be candid, I was really concerned about what I heard about where we are on tech colleges. So I've talked to Superintendent Rainier briefly about it. I know he's absolutely committed to moving tech colleges along. But I met with Todd Eberly to find out where the problem is, and I think I have a pretty good idea. We're going to have to do something, I think, significant in terms of sort of turning this over to perhaps an advisory or ad hoc. Just, board members, community members, that kind, so we'll see where that goes. Scott got approval for his phase 2 cost estimate for Lehigh Acres expansion and phase 2 of the cost estimate for Avancer, so we're on our way. We had a terrific presentation by Clarissa's group on the Franklin Park
That was his group.
Excuse me.
That's his group.
Oh my gosh, but I talked to you after.
No, we talk about Bonita.
I'm so
Different
sorry.
project.
I do the same thing.
Can we see a joint venture?
Credit for your board
We can do a joint venture.
I forget that now. I see how it works.
Oh, I am so sorry. It was a terrific presentation by your group, and now that I think about it, I can visualize the whole presentation. But I will say that the board was really excited by the schedule you posted, the process you used, the community engagement. I mean, it has definitely become the template for how we intend to move forward with rebuilds and new schools. So thank you again to RBG. I got that right?
No.
It's important. RG.
RG. Oh my gosh.
It's Javier's.
Now you know why I'm late. I am just really running. Anyway,
Give them credit, at least we got one of their initials.
Yeah, maybe we need to do a joint venture.
and so that's my report, unless there are questions. Other than my competency.
No, we're good, thank you very much for that. On to our actual agenda items, in the agenda, we have a presentation from VOW Renewables, but I believe that's why Ms. Cedeno is here with some of her team. I guess now would be the time. Oh, and I'm sorry, before we dive right into that, I wanted to get our latecomer Trent up to speed on what he missed was a previous discussion on expiring terms. You're on the list as going to have to apply again in July, so you can go through the website, do the same form, same thing you did, but the 2-year term is expiring this year.
Okay.
With that, now we'll move on to the agenda item for the evening.
So Dan is in Scranton, Pennsylvania, working on a land use zoning
Okay.
meeting. So he says apologize, he had a couple people help stand in.
All right.
And I think we got this set up. You wanna take over?
Well, in terms of this presentation, so, the maintenance staff, I know they worked with the vendor, and the vendor actually, so our maintenance staff, I think, just saw this morning for the first time, and they're not knowledgeable on it to present, because we were anticipating the vendor being able to present on what the findings were and how that would work. So they're not able to present on it.
No, not saying your team was, but Dan's, it takes a lot to put the presentations together, and they haven't had much time. So we kind of pulled into May, because it didn't have a June opening. So they have some information and we'll hope to, come back in October, September, October, when we get started again.
Well, let me ask this, did they do it, did they meet you with you guys and went over the school?
So,
What inspired between the last meeting and this meeting?
so maybe Barb, you can maybe speak a little bit more on what happened since then and the data request.
Yes, so we met with Mr. Boyle. What we did was that he gave us kind of a description of the things that he was seeking. We identified 6 potential sites that he would be, that they can do some modeling, for. So we spelled those out, and then what we did, was data collection. We pulled together some utility invoices. We actually even ran reports from our current utility database. And then based on that information, we were able to provide that to Mr. Dan. And then he was able to put together some information for us for tonight's meeting. But with the understanding that this is just a portion of the project perhaps, of what, kind of like an introductory phase that would really, in order for them to get to the next, portion, I think that involves more work. So he did send us, a PowerPoint.
Has anybody else entered the call?
Can we call him in, is my question? Is there a
Or, and I understand, it was a little tight on his time to try to get to this last meeting. If this is something he just needs more time to do the full analysis and come back, in September, I think we'd like to see it in total and not,
So I just, he had a couple of people that he thought were available
Mhm.
to help with, that had something different than what the maintenance people had. So I don't know,
I'm not sure.
were you opening a call or were they supposed to send you an invite?
For us to make them active, whoever is the caller, they have to send us some type of request so that we can put them on the line or something. And I'm not sure who's the person that's supposed to be
I
presenting.
don't know, either, I don't have their information.
So September sounding good.
Yeah.
Well, we can go through the presentation and figure it out for ourselves.
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, there's some information on there, I'm not
Okay.
sure what.
All right, so let me just double check the one email.
Fortunately, we don't have any other items on the agenda.
Hold on, you may have something in right?
And I apologize, but I'm new to this, what exactly is this?
So I think, previously at a previous meeting,
Explain that for you,
yeah, there was a previous meeting, there was some discussion on, the potential of using, solar on the school properties, and I think the request that, they go ahead and maybe do a short analysis with the maintenance, staff, and they were supposed to kind of bring back some, just some findings on what potential savings there might be.
Hello? Mr. John? Mr. Andrew?
Oh, good afternoon.
Very good, thank you. I'm not sure if we can get more volume.
Is there a way you can select, your speaker?
And who's on the line?
Mr. Andrew Weber is on the line.
Who's it?
Boyd?
Do we have a meeting next month? Or is it the last meeting?
September.
I'm sorry?
Is there a number or something?
Can they, that's being recorded right now, isn't it?
Right.
August is typically off. And
Or is
then,
it today? The last
Less,
yes, the next meeting, there's typically, two in September,
Connected to
after everyone resubmits in July, just so you know the process. It has to go for board approval in August. And then the board approval is typically after our meeting date. So there'll be a meeting either like late August and then 2 weeks later, probably early September is how the season typically starts.
Oh, thank you.
Mr. Andrew, we're trying to figure out the volume. It's set up to the volume for that computer. We're trying to see if we can somehow connect to the TV so everyone can hear your presentation.
I understand, I'll make it ready.
Okay, thank you.
Could you send them like a meeting invite and put them up there?
what about yeah, there's, the remote probably has some kind of volume, something on
Can I talk now?
Yeah, I think so.
Can you say something, Mr. Andrew?
Sure.
That was my only trick.
Maybe under the search, just hit sound, just type in sound real quick, see if it brings up something, sound settings, yeah.
Maybe output, sounds.
Give it a shot. There you
Okay.
go. That should be it.
Can you say something, Mr. Andrew?
Yes.
Yes.
Do the same thing at the bottom?
For this one here?
Make those two match. Is there anything there?
No, there's something else here.
TV's not having my-
don't know, can you get your microphone as loud as you can, or maybe sit in the middle of the room there and
Yeah.
you know, right here?
About the, teamwork and the team.
Yeah. Back to teams and check what's happening there.
Yeah, teams, there's some outputs.
They've done it, listen.
And this,
No, back to you, yes, maybe.
Yeah, click the dot, dot, dot and more, I think the sound settings. Right.
Yeah,
Device settings.
And they call in.
is there a phone, Mr.
you see device settings?
Yeah, but it's good.
I know.
There you go. That's all.
Okay. Thank you.
Takes a team.
Yep. Okay, Mr. Andrew, I have the presentation on the screen, or I think you have it open as well, so that, we're now connected to the TV and they can hear you now.
All right, well, thank you very much for your time today. I apologize if Dan Bowl, who's been there to meet with you prior to this, had to be out of town suddenly, so I'll be filling in for him. My name is Andrew Weber. I'm one of the other owners of Bo Renewables. I'm the W in Bo, and I sit in our office right outside Philadelphia that runs the Northeast for the company. So apologize for the last minute change here due to Dan's schedule, but I should be able to answer any questions that he would have during the presentation here. So to get started here, my understanding is you passed along after our last set of approvals some of the information regarding what the school was using for their energy costs, energy consumption, and what the bills look like as far as the charges that you were seeing. So what we've done up to this point is done a preliminary review of the charges that you're seeing and then model potential solar site sizes to try to match that. The review was done for 3 schools, so that is Island Coast High School, and that's the one we're using for the example that's on the screen you're seeing right now. Pine Island Elementary and Patriot Elementary. And what we've done for this example here is we take a look at all of the energy consumption data that you have over the course of the year. We then model a potential solar system size that would bring the most revenue to that particular school or site, and then take a look at which portion of the energy bill that we're actually able to offset. So in the case of this school that we're showing right now, which is, Island Coast High School, we're looking at, which is about the average for the 3 schools that we looked at in the portfolio, about a 15-year payback period. So you'd be looking at a life cycle of the project being 30 years of the installed life, and the bills for the school being about 1.6 kilowatt hours a year, 1.6 million kilowatt hours a year. And the savings that we are projecting from the solar site to be $126,000 a year. So the way that breaks down is that, yes, you would be saving roughly $126,000 a year for the first 15 years of life of the solar site up to that point. That savings would go up against or be applied against this, and then the remaining 15 years would be all of the savings that you would accumulate from the project. With a total net savings of about just under $2 million when you 9 million over that last 15 years. And I'm just gonna pause there briefly, if you guys have any questions from.
So the payoff is 15 years. What is the replacement of? If the payoff is, tell them if the payoff is 15 years, what's the longevity of the panels?
Okay, he's saying, if the payback, I'm sorry. If the payback period is within 15 years, what's the longevity of the panels themselves?
So the system size is modeled at 30 years. That's the life cycle, some of the warranties of the other equipment. At the end of 30 years, solar panels in general are still producing anywhere from 75 to low 80% of their energy rate. So while we, for this example, we give a 30-year life cycle, a lot of leases that we would sign would normally assume energy going out to 40 to 45 years.
What's the initial investment?
What is the initial investment?
So for this individual project site, I'm reading some of this stuff off screen here. And the initial investment would be $2.26 million. And it's assumed, we get into that later here, that the majority of that would be financed, so that there would not be out-of-pocket costs to the school system.
Is the warranty for the panels 30 years?
Is the warranty for the panel 30 years?
Yes, panels and major electrical equipment both come with 30-year warranties. So that would be the panels, what we would call the racking system, or the steel structure that the panels will be mounted on, and then inverters or other major electrical equipment.
Is that 100% or is it prorated?
Is it 100% or is it prorated?
For the warranty, it would be 100%.
Is that material and labor?
Is that material and labor?
No, from a constructability standpoint, I believe that most projects would carry a workmanship warranty from the contractor who installs it separately for the.
What about the maintenance costs?
Mr. Andrew, 1 second, please. The computer got disconnected. We're reconnecting.
So really, you don't really save anything until year 16, you start approximately 130,000, assuming they're providing the same amount.
Mr. Andrew, we're connected again.
Okay, so for the last question, the warranty for whether it's just replacing the equipment or equipment plus labor to reinstall, that's gonna vary from manufacturer. Aside from that, there will be a two-year usually workmanship warranty from the contractor who does the physical installation of the system. But each component would have its different warranty annual.
1 second, Mr. Andrew, we got disconnected again, but I did hear your question, your response, so 1 second, please.
How many panels do we need and how much we estate about?
Where's he looking at putting
Yeah.
area and where?
They're saying 30.
So, Mr. Andrew, you're connected again, and the question that arose is how many panels are, an average number of panels, and then how much real estate is needed?
So for this system, we're showing a little over 3,000 panels. And how much real estate is needed is going to depend on the type of tracking system that we would be installing, which materials. So the way that the process works out is we would do an initial energy estimate, which is.
1 second, Mr. Andrew. We got disconnected again.
That implies I need to buy an adjacent parcel of about 10 to 15 acres.
Is this Island Coast?
Or,
Is this Island Coast?
Mr. Andrew, the question is this,
well, but you gotta pay for the parcel, that's what this cost is saying, you gotta add to the
So at
cost.
Island
the
Coast,
price
it's
of
not
the-
just the $2 million investment to put the system in, it's the land you're gonna need to place the system.
And then add my
The
cost.
Lee school system, do you own another parcel nearby?
No, that's Kismet, that's got a school plan for it. The parcel across the street is actually just becoming Cape Coral Park, they just had their grand ribbon cutting ceremony on TV or something.
You mentioned a tracking system, can you ask me what type of tracking, and it's not fixed panels, they're actually doing, there's two different tracking you can do on this, which way are they modeling?
So the question is what type of tracking system, are you utilizing, for the modeling?
You know, I have to go back and look, I'm not sure which racking system she put into the model. We are, again, this is, you know, we're just receiving some of the financial data a few weeks ago, we're very preliminary here. We decided to move to the next phase, if you guys were interested in actually, you know, voting on it or having a presentation, or a proposal that you could kind of sink your teeth into. We would need to have an exact array design for each one of the schools built that is taking into account more. What we've done now is more general production from a solar system in Florida versus your energy needs. The next step would be doing engineering, you know, a low-level engineering and modeling. So anything about specific, you know, tracking or racking systems, where the array would sit, that stuff is not included at this point.
Barbara, can you answer for the 5,000 panels at this test site? What that equates to in terms of acreage?
So the question is, for the 5,000 panels for this location, what type of, how much acres, how many acres is needed for this many panels?
So the solar site that we modeled here is a little bit over 2 megawatts, and we.
One second, Mr. Andrew, we got disconnected again, 1 second, please. Okay, we're connected again.
So we would model somewhere between 5 and 7 acres per megawatt, so this is looking at 10 to 14 acres for a system of this size. But again, this can all be discussed based on your actual physical needs on site, and the space that's available.
FGC is one megawatt, that's pretty huge, that big area out there, only about 1 megawatt.
So how much 3 acres of land cost?
Well, no, he said 6 to 7, I heard.
Oh, sorry, 14 acres, how much that cost? What's the price of the real estate? Is another 15 years?
You're probably
Yeah,
somewhere
that's my
around
question, so
4 or
really,
5 million.
yeah.
Stuff that they're not including.
Insurance, so when you put all together, how many years of savings you have? If you're gonna buy the land, spend $3 million, buy the land, insurance, attachment, et cetera. Really, how many years of savings you have? Because now the 15 years of savings are shrinking. If you're gonna spend another $3 million buying the land.
This is,
I'm just trying to find.
right, it could be very easy to kill it at this point. This isn't including inflation.
So this is only an ideal situation, you take 15 years of savings in a 30 years lifespan.
This presentation is also new to me. But
What he said is 15 years payback on your first initial investment.
Yeah, that's
But it didn't count for the property,
Maintenance.
cost of the property, nor the installation factor, I think.
Maintenance.
Well, I gotta think, if there's 5,000 panels, there's one guy, if that's his only job all day long, he's fixing widgets and adjusting this and fixing
That's a
that,
lot of that.
balancing this. And then there's gotta be the weed whacker to cut the weeds underneath it to keep it from.
Hopefully it'll be on the, like a concrete slab.
So you're gonna have the concrete. How many acres of
Yeah,
15 acres
that
of
goes into
concrete.
the impervious range, and now I'm buying credits with South Florida Water Management.
A lot of credits.
You would do a concrete slab, you do gravel, filter fabric with like a foot of 57 stone or something like that on top of it.
But you need something to anchor those panels.
Yeah, they gotta have foundations.
So is that included?
5,000 panels, a lot of concrete,
Oh, the solar traction too, that's a lot of torque that has to be.
the uplift.
Oh, the uplift? Yeah,
I
you
can tell you,
probably,
we revisited at
ICC
Water Management District when we did that.
and that's
MCU
children.
panels.
Yeah.
Yeah, ICC 500.
Because we didn't include the foundations and the permit. So we got to go back and visit them with checking on.
Mr. Andrew?
Right.
Yeah,
One of the questions is the $2.2 million estimate that was provided, does that include, is that like a turnkey project? Does it include installation of materials?
correct, it does.
What materials?
With materials, yes. With materials, correct, Mr. Andrew?
Yes, that's correct.
So the only thing.
Yeah, what we're asking is structural, foundations.
Structural, foundation, is that also included as well?
And everything from the entire system needed to bring it from greenfield to operational is included.
That
Does-
changes.
The other question is, what about ongoing maintenance costs? What does that look like?
You know, there is a maintenance cost portion of the model here. I would have to get back to you on what they actually entered in for their, what we call a yearly O&M cost or operations and maintenance. I don't have that exact number in front of me from this report, but, yeah, we can certainly share that with you after the fact.
So if to recoup $2 million, we need 15 years, so if you buy the land for $10 million, so that outlived the life cycle of those panels. Right?
If you spend $10
We
million
spend
in
15
land,
years, we need
it's not
15 years
worth
to recoup it.
The first 15 years is paying for the install.
But it
The
was $2
second
million.
15 years was an assumed profit, but now we talk about having to purchase land to accommodate 5,000 panels. So now you're probably eating into year 20
Well,
before you see a
No.
return.
now,
$4 million.
the cost of the land's
You
gonna be
already
2 or 3
feel it.
times the
Yeah.
cost of the installation.
No, but what I'm saying is that the installation initially,
Right.
you paid the $2 million off of 15 years.
Correct.
Then you theoretically, the 130,000 a year savings, you realize every year from 15 to 30. But since we're buying property, you have now gone and made
didn't
that
save
payoff
anything.
to 20, 25 years.
You didn't save anything, because
Well, no, 'cause even from 15 to 30, it's just gonna be another, what, 2.something million?
$1 million, according to
Right,
the.
so it's not even gonna be worth the cost of the land.
Right,
Let's let Andrew finish the presentation because we all have our special things. We all have a lot of great questions, but this particular, like, they just grabbed data within the last couple of weeks. They just plopped down a project on this site.
Right.
They didn't analyze yet which land is available, the size. The savings can be proportional, so if they end up with a smaller system on this school, the savings would be smaller, but it would be proportional, so there would still be savings after 15 years. So,
There is
so
some-
don't get hung up.
No, but I have a question on that. The point is, even if you have the land available, let's say you have a lot of land available, still real estate has a gigantic cost. So even if it's your land, even if it's your piece of land, you are still investing that piece of land
All right,
to hold
so
it
there's
back.
another, there's
So
another.
what
there's
other
another-
options are out there?
There's another point of view to look at this.
Mhm.
What is the expiration date for Lee County schools?
Right now, in the pre-cap, you're looking at least 50-year minimum.
Okay, 50-year minimum. So the expenses for electricity are not gonna stop.
Mhm.
We don't know about, the panels are always getting better. It's always getting, they're lasting longer. So we can't learn over the next couple months, next 4 months, what the present proposal will look like, rather than what was built 20 years ago at FGCU or, let's not worry right now about the scale of the project at Island Coast because we don't really know what's available there. It might be much smaller, but we will.
That's what he said, about the.
why don't we just let him finish the
Yeah,
presentation?
let's finish that.
Mr. Andrew, can you continue with your presentation, please?
Sure, yeah, definitely, and I just have echo, I'm having a little bit of a hard time following, the conversation in the room, but yeah, again, we have not done site-by-site detailed engineering of what is the best use of each piece of land on the property. We aren't there yet, so I think our goal, on both sides would be to, if you're interested in the kind of general value proposition of it, it would potentially make sense at some of your schools to pursue solar. We would want to move into that next phase, which is actually doing some site-by-site details of exactly where the usable land is, how much solar could be fit on any potential usable land that doesn't, require a multi-million-dollar purchase. And then what system size would that look like, and then what would the savings be there? So, this is just more a representative example. I wouldn't try to hold this to any of these specific properties because it does not take the reality of the piece of ground into consideration. So for the next slide here, basically it's just showcasing how, so that you have an understanding of energy use versus solar, consumption, details of your energy use during the course of the year versus our energy production during the course of the year. And the one thing that I will point out, if you look at the chart on the bottom right-hand side where you see that solar is overproducing, other months obviously for what is the demand of the building. One thing that we did not take into account when or we just did not include in our cost savings is a pretty significant portion of your bills is made up of your demand charges from the utility. And those are flat over the course of the year that you're charged out for that. As we progress in this and we're able to speak with the utility to interact if we decide to move forward on your behalf, the ability to potentially reduce those demand charges, well, in this case, we're looking at 6 months out of the year where you would not be being charged, demand charge. Your demand charges for that school in particular are running about $7,000 per month. So that's potential, if the utility views it that way, which some do and some don't, you might be looking at another $40,000 in savings for that year by not being subject to demand charges during those months. So there are other factors that come into the final number of the value of the system, what your savings are, that you can't take into account until we're able to really kind of interact with all the people, the stakeholders. And then I think the last slide that I wanted to bring up here is just based on the fact that our model would be to bring to the table a financing partner for the school, if that's the way you wanted to do it, or if the school is choosing to finance something like this themselves, it's absolutely an option. With the plan of being able to include the cost of financing into the cost of the system, which has the potential to have the whole system installed at no out-of-pocket cost to you, and then the balance of the energy generated plus whatever wholesale prices are coming back to you would be given to the finance party, and then there would obviously be no money coming out on your side. And so any proposal that we would make would come attached with, if you wanted it, to have financing done through one of our partner companies. And then I think the last slide here is just for me, and again, I was not at the meeting with Dan last time, is this is the value proposition that we would bring to the table, the ability to show you exactly how much money at a given site you could potentially save, taking in everything to account of some of your specific needs or here on this presentation. And I guess the only feedback we would really be looking for is this in general still something that is of interest to you, of us continuing to pursue? And if that's the case, what is the deadline and what does the decision point look like for you guys to continue to move ourselves down the line? And that would be open to your level of interest, when your next meeting schedule is, and any of that thing that we're not privy to. But there certainly is potential here for significant savings, we believe, if everything is built correctly.
Do we have a property that has 6 to 10 acres of empty land that they can develop a model for that school? Because right now this town doesn't have that 10 acres. So that cost of that acreage is not inside this model. Unless we give them a site that has actually sites to put these panels on, I think we don't wanna waste the guys' time. Unless you're willing to purchase 10 acres for those panels.
The tech school in Cape Coral has several acres adjacent to it. I don't know if they're gonna expand that.
Yeah, they are, that's gone.
So the real estate.
Typically, all of our schools are in built-out areas, so the only way you're gonna acquire any parcels adjacent to the property is by an eminent domain grant. So, and pretty much all the new parcels we're buying many are dual sites, and very constrained as it is to be a dual site. So what we're realizing now with parent drop-off and pickup at many of our schools, we're having to have greater drop-off lanes and area on site than we ever had to do before.
How much we paying for acre right now?
I'm not a realtor, I couldn't tell you. I mean,
I mean, the structural system that is incorporated in here, is it like that last picture we saw where it's relatively flat, low-lying system, kind of made for almost a roof type application? So it's not really elevated?
And
Yeah, that's correct. So there's, I mean, the way that it's modeled right now is, ground mount, so there's the option if we look at parking canopies and taking over parking lot space, that option's a little more expensive, or if rooftops are an option as well, that option's a little bit cheaper.
I'm almost thinking about like retention ponds, how does that work? Is there something that?
You're gonna fight South Florida water management, so to me, roofs are out as a district, they used to drive anything, to say it in that regard. Canopies on parking lots, you could do it, but like for Island Coast High School, that's a shelter. So now anything you build out there has to be non-missile. So the footings and the structure to hold these apparatuses is gonna be pretty costly.
Retention ponds might, if you're not taking up volume, taking away volume from the retention pond, that might be a possibility.
Yeah, but you have to be able to maintain it, you have to be able to fix slopes, if you just, it's kind of like even in neighborhoods, it's a fight, and Miss Brown will know this, because the neighborhood we lived in, just to drive a fence into the lake to keep the kids from cutting through people's backyards was really an act of God in South Florida water management, so you can't maintain it, you're cutting off something that's meant to be a governmental agency, I don't know that that's a very good concept.
still was costly.
A couple of questions here. Is there any funding to the federal government for this stuff?
The only funding that would come through the federal government would be the investment tax credit. And so that's, if you're gonna be buying into a system like this, you would potentially get 30% of that back at the end of the day. My understanding is that in this case, we would not, I'm trying to find a note on that. I don't believe that we would qualify for that.
And what, has this been done in other school districts around the country?
Yeah, the difference unfortunately with Florida is that Florida is one of the only, I believe it's 3 states in the entire country that does not allow for what's called a power purchase agreement. So the normal course of action here was that the company that's gonna be developing solar would own the solar system long term and just sell you the power from it. FPL does not allow that in the state of Florida. So that's why we're talking about potentially you having to invest in the system on your own. In any other case, obviously the company who would be providing the power purchase agreement would take advantage of the ITC as a private company, as you being a public school system. I believe you're excluded from the federal incentives.
Can you please explain how that credit, University of Pennsylvania, is that what you were working with in Pennsylvania? You're getting off-site solar?
Yes, well, we developed the project that Penn State brought their PPA or power purchase agreement from.
Yeah. Does everybody understand what you're saying Florida doesn't allow for there?
Yeah, FPL's been finding solar passion.
Yes, for being from the Sunshine, FPL is the least solar friendly utility in the country.
If we allow them to go ahead and proceed with that, with Island Coast, and see what, he's gonna be limited on the number of panels that he can provide within the empty, the available space. He can run his model on that school and present it back in September, see what the actual savings. We may not get 100% of panel, but you get 20%, 30%, maybe the saving is worth the investment.
You gotta pick the low hanging fruit, what land is available that you can do without completely.
And that was like 100 panels instead of 5,000.
So let me ask Andrew another question. Andrew, is it fair, is it a good idea to pick 5 or 6 schools and try to find the best scenarios to work on? I mean, is that, This might not.
Yeah, I think understanding more of your concerns now after sitting in this meeting, that if you have, one that you think fit the criteria of having a little bit of potential open space or a good parking lot or a roof that's relatively flat or any of the above that you think would work and you'd like us to get a little bit deeper into a model of proposed layout, we can provide all that, but we need a potential site or two to work with.
I have a question for you on your cost model. Your investment portion of the system, does that include the interest of the financial partner, or is just the cash cost of the system?
At this point, it's the cash cost, but if we're gonna do a more detailed view of it, we'll roll everything into one, but you'll also get an exact breakout of where every dollar would go.
Okay.
So it could be that in 4 months, when we're really getting close to something on this, that the right financial partner presents itself. So they haven't gone through and picked a particular financing vehicle for this yet. Is that?
The only reason I'm asking this is because it's really attractive if you can save 15 years in the life of the system, if you can save 15 years. But if you start adding interest for a financial partner, maintenance, attachment, et cetera, you might need another 10 years. So basically, you only save 5 years in the 30 years of the system. So my question is it worth it? I think it's a fantastic system, but I'm sure that we need, or the school district needs to see all the data before making any decision.
Yeah.
Right now,
And then, like I said, and there's things going in the other direction, like the electric bill, it's not gonna stay constant for the next 30 years either. It's
No.
gonna be going up pretty
that
rapidly
is true
itself.
too,
And that's
so,
gonna happen in the opposite direction.
Yep.
So there's a lot of variables that come into play here that we probably need to wrap our head around a little bit better.
yeah,
If FPL is able to stay in control of it, they're a public company. They are going to continue to raise their profits for their shareholders, which, whether they're producing their own power cheaper or not, they're still gonna make more money off of the
Beat
clients.
this in a year for the rest of your life.
Right, and if I was a shareholder of FPL, I would want that.
mhm.
Uh,
There's a lot of that.
Yeah, it's gonna be nice to see it in more detail.
Wouldn't the biggest hurdle be trying to find a way to install these panels and not have to buy property? That's it.
Well, finding the right size, I mean, what can you fit without, picking the low hanging fruit?
Right.
Can you get 400 panels on an existing campus without doing any major modifications? And, you don't get a 100% system, you get 10, 15, but it's still better than nothing at some point.
So to my point, even further, if you just think outside of the box. Okay, of course you won't be mounting panels on the roof because that's a possible leak, right? That's the reason most folks, especially on the school, say no penetrations in the roof. But what if there was some type of device where you can mount on the sides and then put the panels on? Just a thought.
I would make that any precast of drilling into them, because you create future fracture points. And the parking lot, sure, it's doable, but you gotta remember you're at a school. So we could have trucks and vehicles that go through those parking lots. So think about running over all the parking area, a massive canopy at about 14 or 15 feet high. Now, what parking lot haven't you seen where we haven't taken out a light pole? Okay, kids are
Oh, and the cost of the infrastructure to install it on the school.
The other problem is, as the asphalt deteriorates and maybe some of the underground storm drainage piping needs to be replaced, RCP or PVC, how do you dig it back up and fix it? How do you repave it?
But they're talking about installing these panels on new structures, right?
Well, they're talking acreage. They prefer to put it on your roof.
Right, but I'm still going back to if you mounted it on the side. If it was a new school that was going in, and then they were part of the design phase where there was something mounted, it was mounted in a way where you had that structural piece to support it.
Anything's possible as long as you got the money.
Say it again?
You have to span the whole roof though.
Yeah,
So-
Anything's possible as long as you have money. I can tell you to harden the buildings to be shelters typically is running about $2 million now. So just to harden a portion of the structure to be a shelter for the wind rain. And it's not the whole facility, it's just specific areas. So I think if you're talking about beefing up those panels and putting inserts and embedment items to strengthen them for something that's gonna be cantilevered and has to rotate and adjust with the sun's movement, I don't know, it just sounds like a lot of cash.
So at this point, for the sake of time, and we wanna thank Andrew for the presentation. Dan we'll make sure Dan's here, I'm gonna tie him down if I have to for the next one. A lot of people go to Costco for a small savings. But what we're talking about in the early stages here is a big savings. So I would suggest that we move forward, even if we only end up with a small savings. Because it's only one school or a couple of schools, we can continue to add to that process and make it better.
And that's why, the 11 proceed with the island coast.
Yeah.
Within the existing sites, stay within the existing sites, see how many.
Because a better site was,
And they come back in September, say, okay, here's the actual saving.
I mean, it's not costing you anything, so if you guys want to take a presentation on a smaller scale, why not?
It's still free, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's what he said in the first meeting, he said free.
Alright, so we,
They can sell ballast panels too,
Yeah.
you basically put cinder blocks
Look.
on it.
You can bring that up, but I can just tell you, I will fight that till my dying breath.
Well,
We live in a
Andrew,
subtropical environment,
Andrew,
anytime you put a hole in a roof or a pitch pocket, you got a problem.
Andrew,
Because the shell, the ICC 500, you cannot have anything that can fly away.
I mean, very few other schools are actually shelters.
In some of the schools too, yeah.
Yeah, you'd probably disqualify 5-10%.
I mean, like
The new
this
ones.
building's not a shelter, you could, for this huge building here, solar, PV panels.
So it's ballasted if you didn't put a million holes in it.
No point.
You would put any kind of panels except for where they're coming down the pallet.
Alright, so I know for our maintenance staff, we just, I guess, need a motion and a vote from the chair on which way we proceed.
And then, I'm sorry, we'll do that, but the other question is that, like, you're thinking you're getting 30 years out of panels, you're only getting 15 years out of
Yeah,
roofs.
so you gotta remove them and put them back up, yeah.
Right, so there's that expense as well. So, with that said, thank you, Mr. Ross, for keeping this on target, we're kind of right about our timeline, and thank you again for the presentation, Mr. Weber, and I'm really trying not to call you Lloyd. Well, with that, can I have a motion from the committee about whether or not we'd like to pursue a smaller scale version of this on, some land that may be available at one of the school sites, and then revisit this in the fall?
Question, so we're still talking about them doing research on this small plot of land, and it won't cost additional, is that correct?
Other than some time from the maintenance department, they do invest a little time in getting them information.
Oh,
But
yes,
there
of
is no-
course.
There's no.
Considering this time is not free, as well as her team, so.
I'd like to make a motion of continuing conversation with BOW to analyze Allen Coast School and come up with maybe a smaller model, and let's compare the saving for that.
Second,
but if they're willing to do more work than just Allen Park,
I don't wanna waste his time, but it's more than that. Think of
I
another
mean, you can
school.
look at the high school is a considerable sized site, you can look at a sample elementary as well. Well, I mean, we don't wanna put their time into 5 or 6 sites, but, maybe 2 makes sense.
And also, if I could recommend, I could get with our planning department and get our properties that we own, and more specifically, school properties that may have additional acres, and throw maybe a couple of those into the analysis. So that'll be some of the land that would not need to be purchased.
Yeah, a good fitting property, I mean, I don't know Island Coast off the top of my head, how much land is actually available there, that's,
Zero, right, so maybe pick a couple that may have a little land.
I just had a question about the orientation. So as your team goes through the assignment, should orientation of the real estate that's available be a consideration factor?
Something that they need to look into to take into account.
Mr. Andrew? Hold on, we got disconnected again.
To maximize the panel's return, they have to be able to adjust with the travel of the sun.
Well, and then the other part is, those motorized operations, they're probably the largest problematic maintenance riddled part. How much payback do you lose if you go for a fixed system?
They have a maintenance program, he said he didn't know what that value was on a yearly basis, but he would get back to us with that.
Well, it was part of what's
Because
included.
if the water breaks, you're gonna lose some.
That's part of
That was
the.
my motion.
That was his motion.
What happened if you
Yeah,
have to-
So-
Yeah, exactly, we're just asking, we're rehashing the old question,
Right.
another
So
level of
let's let
detail that we
them-
don't have.
Let's vote on it and let them move forward if everybody
So
agrees. and
we have a
then we can-
motion and a second by Mr. Tobler, so all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? It seems like the interest is there to keep on moving along. We'll get you a little better information, maybe a more suitable site, and we can look at available land and kind of take a look at that, of how much would that help. And one of those other cost analysis is fixed versus tracking panels. How much production is lost by, taking that maintenance life cycle out of the equation. And obviously, there's different levels of costs included within the budgetary numbers you provided. So we'd like to take a little bit harder dive into the details of that, of what is included exactly and what's not.
Yeah, I'm happy to provide all that information, and if it helps, and if there was someone, you wanted to nominate on your side to sit down with some of the engineers on our team to run through, like if you have a larger list of maybe 20 schools of work, you want us to sit with you and talk through what would and what not work to pick which ones we really want to present as the base case. That's probably an exercise that would be worth both of our time, so the way to do that. Because we might think of some things that you're not, when we're reviewing which schools make sense to try to win those on.
Fair enough. How do we go approach that? I don't wanna put any work on your team, but yeah, you all kind of have to start with that.
That's the committee's decision, and we'll allocate staff, to assist with this process.
Well, hopefully it's not too complicated, it's a few meetings of setting some base criteria of directionality or what they're looking for, so that we look with the, internally with the correct, glasses on.
Yeah, and I think having gone through this first cycle, hopefully it'll make it a little easier for them the next time we get there.
All right.
So, Mr. Andrew, your team will reach out to us at Internet Services, and we'll do a follow-up, and we can start scheduling those meetings.
All right, will do. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Andrew.
Thank you. You're in. All right, real
I'm gonna
quickly,
log off now.
around the room for the go to the order. Anything else to add? Oh, you're quiet today, man.
Right now, I have one thing. I know they introduced themselves in the beginning, but I wanted to, kind of go back and introduce our maintenance staff. You met Scott and a lot of his team. They handle a lot of our construction and capital expenditure, but a lot is also done on the maintenance side as well. They have their projects that they man, they're usually smaller in scale, but they use GCs, architects, building officials as well. And we kind of had a change in leadership, so I wanted to bring them, introduce them, and I'm sure they'll be coming back in the future for some different presentations and similar to this as well. And so I'm gonna talk on them because they're probably not gonna brag on themselves enough, so I'm gonna brag on them. So we have our director, Barbara Cedeno. She's been with the district for a while, worked her way up, has held several different positions in the maintenance department. Held it down in the assistant director role for a long time and with the lack of a director, and went through the process and was awarded the job and has been doing a great job. Then we also have our assistant director, Dr. Tony McNair. She started actually last week and she came back this week, so that was a good sign. And, but she comes, brings some great construction experience, actually, was a project manager at OAK, is who we stole it from. But previous from that has both, facilities management experience in both financial institutions, educational institutions up north, so hoping she, brings a lot of great deal of experience to our team. Then we have two coordinators, as well. First, Chris Stuber. Chris was a supervisor, assistant supervisor on one of our trades teams within the maintenance department. Did a great job on there, and now he's kind of managing those trades. Give me those trades, Chris.
Building crafts, plumbing, electrical, e-tron, and paint.
And paint. So he's been managing those trades, as well as gonna be doing some, manage some projects and project management. And then, Sean Brady, also another coordinator. He came from the outside trades and managing some of those outside trades and some of the pest control and the turf and the irrigation. Also, taking over our stock room as well. So this is kind of this is our new maintenance management team, and putting a lot of weight on their shoulders. Got some big expectations, but I know they can handle it. So just wanted to introduce that team to you as well. Yes, sir.
Is Sean Brady kin to the football guy?
Tom Brady, I don't know.
My brother is Tom Brady, not the Tom.
Not the Tom.
I wouldn't be sitting here.
Probably not.
Right, but they're a great team, and again, they have a lot of construction work over there as well, so you'll be seeing that place in the future.
All right, anybody else under the good of the order?
Great summer.
Have a great summer, thank you all very much, don't forget to reapply.
We didn't.
And I haven't adjourned yet, Dana.
All in favor?
All those guys.
Can I get a second? Apparently not.
Okay.
All right, yeah.
If you leave any property.
They didn't cut my legs out anyway, so it's not really.
What's up, Steve? Hey, doing, man?
Good, how about yourself?
Doing pretty good. Yeah.
I'm gonna guess this group because I really like the fact that they just